and then the chef will take as many as he feels,
I need to ask you the questions, Akhi. What is this? First introduction, now you, come on, Akhi, subhanAllah. Anyone have any further, Akhi?
When you have jealousy or hatred towards someone, sometimes the nafs is taking over the show. Is it permissible to ask somebody, I feel like I have a bad opinion of this brother, but that's maybe because of my jealousy and to do with nothing else? Is it permissible to ask somebody, because you said suppress it, but how do you know it's not taking over the show in a workplace, for example?
Clear. With regards to having a hasad in your heart and suppressing it versus asking about it, getting some advice, asking someone learning and knowledgeable and experienced about how to get rid of it, or what do you think? Do you think it's right? So on and so forth. Jazakallah khairan. Before I answer the question, you brought up something that I want to mention briefly. And that is, if you have a hasad for someone, and you bring up some criticism against them, and I want to say this once and for all for the record, for all of those in attendance and those to hear, we have no problem with criticism. We welcome criticism, but with conditions. And the first condition is that the criticism has to be scientific. Naqt ilmi. It has to be based off of knowledge. As far as fulan and alan and this and that, we don't welcome that type of criticism. Wallahi, even if you are a hater, and if you have jealousy or whatever, you can say we don't like you, nothing about it, and the criticism is factual and scientific, I will say thank you, jazakallahu khairan, shukran. Even if I disagree with you, if you bring criticism that's based off of something, I still would thank you. So for the people to know what I believe, and I believe that I speak on behalf of the brothers here as well, there's nothing wrong with scientific criticism, knowledge-based criticism. That is a part of the deen. But the problem is that if you're making criticism of someone and you have hasad, whether they take your criticism or not, you still have to fix your situation. You still have a problem with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah for having hasad. Everyone understand this? So with regards to the question, there's several ways we can answer the question. First and foremost is, the ulama of Islam have mentioned, it's nothing wrong with mentioning a sin or mentioning someone's name or even attacking someone's honor if there's a need. Seeking fatwa, seeking shura or nasiha. And there's no way that you can be indirect, but you have to be blunt and specific. Oh, what's the problem? I don't want to mention it. No, tell me, what's the problem? What's the issue? And he says, it's Muhammad Ibn Muneer. I heard some things, I've seen some things, so on and so forth, and I feel a certain type of way. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as it is necessity. As long as it's what? Necessity. As the Messenger of Allah would do with us in certain situations. Sometimes he would say, Ma balu rijalin. Why do men do this? Ma balu aqwamin. Why are people doing this? He wouldn't mention their names. And there's some times in which he would say it to the person's face. Afatanun anta, ya Mu'adh. Are you a troublemaker, Mu'adh? Are you a troublemaker? Are you a troublemaker? Look at the beauty of this hadith. He asked Mu'adh, was he a troublemaker for leading the salah too long? What would the Prophet of Islam say if he heard some of our statements today? What type of troublemakers will we be labeled as? His only crime is that he recited a long surah in the salah. And he asked them, was he a troublemaker 3 times? Just imagine if the Prophet heard our khutbahs and our classes and read our social media. What would he say about us? What type of fatan would we be called? Think about this hadith now. But yet and still, he said it to Mu'adh's face. He didn't say it behind his back. Then there are other hadiths in which people came to the Prophet and mentioned names. And he gave them the fatwa. أما معاوية فسلوك لا مال وما أبو جهم فضراب للنساء. He says Muawiyah has no money. Abu Jahm hits women. Married Usama. So she mentioned names. And the Prophet entertained her question. And he answered the question and he mentioned Usama, a 3rd name. So if it's a necessity, if it's a need, then there's nothing wrong with that. If there isn't a necessity and there isn't a need, there's no need to attack the honor of a Muslim, even if that Muslim is wrong and sinful. Alright? And last but not least is the statement that says, Yukhfihi aw ammihi fi sadrika. Okay, hide it in your chest, stifle it in your chest. I don't think that they meant just let it fester in your chest. They didn't mean that. Just cover it up with dirt. No. But they mean work on it. Fight it. Ask Allah to remove it. Hate it. And at the same time, while you're working on it, cover it up. You understand? And under any circumstances mean just let it sit in your heart and fester. That's not the maqsood, as we just explained about the hadith of the men and women who imitate each other. Is that you have to fight it and hide it at the same time. So I have a problem smoking cigarettes. I just don't put the cigarette out, brush my teeth, put on cologne, chew some gum or some mints before I come to the masjid. But I'm working on dropping my cigarette addiction. But while I'm working on it, it may take a month or a year, I also need to do what? Hide it. I don't understand the difference. And it doesn't just mean just hide the jealousy in your heart. No. But you have to work on it. Whether it's consulting someone, whether it's going up to the person, or whatever else you have to do to remove that hasad from your heart. And even if you can't remove it, it may be so strong, at least bury it. Wallahu a'lam. Khalas, Khayyim, inshallah. Any questions from the sisters? If there are any sisters here, if not, we will fadl. Wafikum. The beginning student of knowledge, the student of knowledge is the beginner. What should he or she be busy with? You should be busy with being a student of knowledge. Be busy with being a student of knowledge. And what is a student of knowledge except to study knowledge? Study knowledge. So you should be busy with ilm and only ilm. You shouldn't be busy with other things and other people. There were some of the ulama of the past, it was said about them, إِنَّ فُلَانًا أَعْلَمْ بِرِجَالِ الْحَدِيثِ مِنْ جِيرَانِهِ. They said that this person knows more about the narrators of hadith than his own neighbors. He knows more of the narrators of hadith than the men who lived next to him and around him. He was naive, he was oblivious, he was stupid. No, meaning that his nose was always in the kutub of hadith more than in the noses of men and of people. And that's an alim. So if that's an alim, he's so busy with ilm, with hadith, he doesn't have time for this one and that one. What do you think about me and about you? So a student of knowledge should be busy with being a student of knowledge, studying knowledge. Obviously, first and foremost is al-ikhlas. After ikhlas is tasheehun niyyah. And tasheehun niyyah is not necessarily the same as ikhlas. Ikhlas is one thing. I study for Allah. Tasheehun niyyah is a bit different. That is, I would say, defining your purpose. Seeking knowledge to benefit people. Seeking knowledge to help yourself. Seeking knowledge to be a better member of your community. That's what's meant by tasheehun niyyah. Ikhlas and that are two different things. Because you can be sincere for Allah, but you can seek knowledge for the wrong reasons. Or you can seek knowledge with the wrong purpose or with the wrong aspirations. So there are two different steps. Number 3, try your best to perfect the reading of the Quran al-Kareem. Not its memorization, not its tafsir, not the ayat al-ahkam, but the qira'ah and the tilawah. Having the proper recitation of the Quran. If you learn how to properly read the Quran, you can memorize it by yourself. And you can learn the improper recitation of the Quran and sit with a shaykh instead of khata in Allah. Is that not possible? It's possible. So learn how to read the Quran properly. Then, bid'Allah ta'ala, start memorizing the Quran. Inshallah. Even if it takes you 10 years or 5 years or 20 years, but start on the journey. Then learn the Arabic language. Start learning basic conversation. How to express yourself. How to ask questions. How to communicate. And do not start off with grammar and morphology. Don't start off with nahw itself. There is no ajrumiyya in the beginning. You don't need that book. You need how to say hello. How to say, I want this for dinner. How to say, where's the auto bus? Where's the bus stop? Where's the train station? That's the Arabic that you need to learn in the beginning. And also learn the adhkar of the Prophet ﷺ. Learn the prophetic supplications. And the wisdom behind that, obviously, 2 main wisdoms. Wisdom number 1 is to strengthen your relationship with Allah. And as some of the Salaf Salih would say, من طلب الحديث فقد طلب أعلى الأمور فيجب أن يكون خير الناس. He who learns hadith disciple, he has to be the best of the people. And that's because he's seeking the best of the best. He's learning the best of the best, so he has to behave accordingly. So you have to have the strongest connection with Allah out of all the people. Secondly, learning the adhkar teaches you the bread and the butter of talabul ilm. and that is repetition. And that's the magic of repetition. The magic of tikrar. When you memorize something, you go over it, you keep going over it over and over again, the thing, quote unquote, magically sticks in your mind. Even though you didn't think you could do it, or it's too long, or it's too hard. But because you say it every day before you get dressed, every day before you eat, every day before you go to sleep, every day before you wake up, it is what? Khalas. And that's why some of the ulama of hadith, they would say that, Inni la ahfadu nuskhat fulan kama ahfadu surah al-Fatiha. They would say, I know the hadiths of this companion like I know the Fatiha. How is that impossible? Except through strong memory, what? Repetition. And repeating the repeated. And that's what you learn through afkar. Is that the more work you put in, and the more you repeat it, it's impossible to forget the knowledge. And that's more important than starting with this book, or that book, or this sheikh, or Quran Alan. And we said this earlier at the Humayra Masjid, is the mentality and the philosophy of a talib al-ilm. And you have to learn that is the bread and the butter. Mudhakaratul ilmi hayatuhu. The life of ilm is revision. The lifeblood, the thing that makes ilm pump is mudhakara. And you can't learn that by just studying this one time and moving on to another book. So you have to be taught those values what? Early on. So that's what you should be busy with as a student of knowledge. Once you've achieved much, you've covered a lot of ground, move on to other sciences that your teacher advises you with. Wallahu a'lam. Jazakallah khair. Any other questions, brothers? If not, we'll stop. Fadl.
A few things, inshallah. I spend a lot of time with you on YouTube.
Barakallah feek.
And sometimes I don't always hear the question from whoever's asking the question.
Okay.
So not criticism, but if you could repeat the question all the time,
okay,
then I'll always know what you're answering.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
That would be great. That's the first thing. Secondly, a question. I've heard some people talk about riba in a way where they say the normal, say the high street mortgage is fine to take.
Okay.
Because of the opinion that they have where they say the person doing the transaction to you is the one who's going to be held accountable for it, not the one who's being done to.
Okay.
I.e., if I'm buying and I'm having to go to the bank to get the mortgage, then it's not my fault that that's the system they use. So just to get some clarification.
Clear. Okay. Jazakallah khair. With regards to riba, and how some people may say that the riba that you get from the financial institutions, the banks, the realtors, whatever the case may be, is okay. Because they're sinful for taking the riba, and you're not sinful for taking the benefit of the riba. Is that correct? So on and so forth. Jazakallah khair, a very important question. It is a well-known issue to the people of knowledge. The ulama of Islam, from the early days up until now, they've agreed on many things. And they've differed on many things with regards to riba. All of the ulama don't agree on every single issue of riba. They differ on certain things. So that's nothing strange or weird. And if they differed back then of course 1,000 years later, they're also going to differ because the world has changed. And things have changed. And economics and politics and things are very, 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 very different than in the 2nd century or the 3rd century. The time of Abu Hanifa is not 2019, of course. The time of Ibn Hajar is not 2019. Things are very different. So that's nothing strange. So there are those who have different views and different opinions. But the advice that I would give, or before that, they differ on other things. Is it permissible to have riba in Dar al-Harb? Is it permissible to have riba for the one who's taking to give? They differ on these issues. There's khilaf on many of these issues. But my nasiha is the words of the Messenger of Allah, the authentic hadith. لَعَنَ اللَّهُ آكِلَ الرِّبَا وَمُنْكِلَهُ وَكَاتِبَهُ وَشَاهِدَيْهِ وَقَالَ هُمْ سَوَاءٌ. La'ana, the Prophet he says that he who eats riba is cursed. وَمُنْكِلَهُ, and he who gives it as food. وَكَاتِبَهُ, the one who writes it down. وَشَاهِدَيْهِ, and the 2 witnesses. And he said, هُمْ سَوَاءٌ, they're all equal. So that opinion, based off of that authentic hadith, is baseless. Which the Prophet ﷺ discriminated not. The eater, the server, the witness, the watcher, كُلُّهُمْ مَلْعُونُونَ, they're all cursed. Some of the ulama, they say, of the modern scholars, is that it's impermissible to work as a security guard in a bank. And some of them say it's impermissible to take training in a bank. And that's because you are a witness and a shahid to riba. You understand this? The problem, or not the problem, but the issue of any issue here will be of ta'rif riba. What is riba? Is riba usury and interest? Or is riba just usury and not interest? Maybe a person could argue on that. And I never said that it's not haram, but I said a person could what? Perhaps argue on that. One could possibly say usury is interest. لا تأكل الربا أضعافا مضاعفة. Usury, in which you're just breaking someone's back, taking their money, raping them with riba. As far as a small percentage of interest, giving or taking, which is unanimously accepted in the world today, the Visa, Master, etc. Some may say it's nothing wrong with that. Or others may say there's something wrong with it, but it's a necessity. Alright? But the person who says that riba is only haram for the one who does it directly, la. There's no way, there's no room there. I understand the point I'm trying to get to? The Prophet says that they are all equal. So that's what I was saying with regards to that. With regards to the other issues of riba, is it riba in the West? Is it a necessity to have a house? Is it haram to have a mortgage? Then that is an issue in which there's what? A very long scholastic discussion. My words, I quote, a very long scholastic discussion. Not with ignorance, not with a full cup. Ilm. Of the Sharia, ilm of the world and its economic system, and ilm of the maqasid al-tashri', the higher aims of legislation. Wallahu a'lam. Khairan inshallah. We'll stop. Fadl akhi. Waleed, I'm sorry, excuse me. I didn't forget about you, Waleed. Malish, fadl.
Can I ask the brother?
It's your question, right? No, you go ahead, Waleed. Fadl.
Hijama during Ramadan.
What's the ruling on getting hijama during Ramadan? I would advise to stay away from it, unless you do it at nighttime. Only do the hijama at night. That's the advice that I would give you. As far as what the ulama of Islam say regarding this issue, then they differ. Some of them say hijama breaks the fast. Aftar al-hajimu wal-mahjum. The one who's cupping, the one who's receiving the cupping have broken their fast. Others say there is no iftar for the hajim or the mahjum, and it's mansukh. It's cancelled. It used to be a ruling, but it's no longer a ruling. وذلك بأن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام احتجم وهو صائم. All right. View number 3 are those who may say that hijama doesn't break the fast, ولكنها مظنة الإفطار. It's something that leads to iftar because so much blood is being taken from you, and you become so weak and tired and exhausted, like sleep. Some ulama say that sleep itself breaks wudu. And others they say بل النوم مظنة النقض, مظنة الانتقاض, مظنة الحدث. They say that sleep doesn't break wudu, but sleep is the gateway to your wudu being broken. Because you're asleep, you're not aware of your senses, you may pass wind. Alright, so some of them say that hijama breaks the wudu, period. Others say it doesn't break the wudu, period. And some say is that it's a means behind the wudu being broken because you're so weak and you're so what? Light-headed or wherever you get the hijama. Al-muhim, ala kulli hal, alladhi nansah bi, the advice that we give, تبتعد عن الحجامة إلا أن تكون يعني ضرورة. You have to get it done. If you can wait until night, if you can wait to do it later on after the qiyam, or if you can wait till after Ramadan, then that's best. That's the best thing to do. Wallahu a'lam. Fadal ya akhi. Clear, Waleed?
Yes.
Fadal. وإياكم.
To give a student, is it better to take the greatest of hadith from the early scholars or the later scholars?
With regards to a student of hadith, is it best to take the rulings from the early scholars or the later scholars? In general, the general rule is the earlier you go, the further you go back, the better it is. in all affairs of the deen. And there lies no doubt that we are very hypocritical. We just said this in the last masjid, unfortunately. They asked the question about takfir and the question of tabdir. People are so lax when it comes to tabdir. But they demonize anyone who brings up or mentions takfir. And that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. As we mentioned, the reason behind these two things being connected. They're related. They're not the same, but they're related. So why is it such an easy, simple thing to make tabdir on someone, and such a demonic, dangerous thing to make takfir on someone? Of course, one is of a higher level, but it's still min bab al-asma' wal ahkam. So that's hypocritical. Another point of hypocrisy that we have, unfortunately, is that we say the Salaf, when it comes to Aqidah, the Salaf never said this. The Salaf never understood this. We believe in Allah's asma' wa sifat, al-mirruha kama ja'at. This is what the Salaf said about Allah's asma' wa sifat, and the Ashaira, Maturidi, fulan, they're all mubtadi'ah. The innovators did not from Ahl Sunnah because they didn't take the madhab al-Salaf في التلقي ومذهب السلف في فهم هذه النصوص. فهذا كلام صحيح. It's true. But the same applies to the madhab al-Salaf when it comes to fiqh. If you say that there's ijma' on an issue, it's ijma'. But then you open up Musannaf Abdul Razak or Musannaf Ibn Abi Shayba, you find Fulan, Sulaiman ibn Isad, Hasan al-Basri, Qatada, Abdullah ibn Umar, all of them held that view. How are you going to say it's ijma' now? And how can you say you're following the Salaf and this is the kalam of the Salaf on this issue? So fahm al-Salaf in fiqh, and fahm al-Salaf in akhlaq, fahm al-Salaf when it comes to the rulers, and fahm al-Salaf when it comes to the ahadith. So many people, they only pick and choose what they want from the way of the Salaf, and that's hypocritical and that's wrong. Point number one. Point number two is, why is there even a difference between the earlier scholars of hadith? What difference does it make? Aren't they all scholars of hadith? What's the difference? Rather, the scholars who came later on, they may have a better stance in hadith because they saw everything from a distance. And we know that the worst thing that a general could do is lead from the front. The worst thing for a military commander is to lead his army from the front row. No matter how brave and courageous you are, that's a mistake. And that's because you cannot assess the entire battlefield from the front. You have to be at a distance where you can see everything developing. When to send in reinforcements, when to retreat, when. So the concept of the ulama who came in the 7th century and the 8th century, one can hypothetically say they are more accurate because they what? They saw things from a what? From a distance. The Sunnah was compiled, the books were made, and they investigated everything. Ahmed, Bukhari, Tirmidhi, Muslim, they were on the front. One could possibly make that argument. However, if you look at the Islamic history, you know it's a well-known, established fact that there were many things that took place in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th century. And there were many foreign influences on Islamic thought and on Islamic scholarship. And included in that is hadith, whether it is usul al-fiqh, whether it is ahlul kalam, the Mu'tazila, the Ash'ira, the Maturidiyya, the Kullabiyya, whether it is the conquering of non-Muslims of Muslim lands and Islamic lands and Muslim territories. There were many things that affected Islamic thought. And many things were changed and altered, and many alien views entered upon the sciences of Islam, even the Arabic language. There were things that were put in dictionaries that the early grammarians never even knew about. The early ulama of the Lugha al-Arabiyyah, they never even heard of. The one who made this line of poetry, they don't even know who he was. All because of those different influences. And from that were the ulama of hadith. So when you read Nukhbat al-Fiqh, you find ahad, you find mutawatir. Where you find Imam Ahmad mention the word mutawatir? Where you find Imam al-Bukhari mention the word ahad? Where you find him even saying you feed the dhann, you feed ilm al-yaqeen, al-ilm al-yaqeeni, bil qara'ani ala al-mukhtar. Where you find him even bringing up these issues, are those issues even from ulum al-hadith? Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar himself in Nuzhat al-Nazar, what does he say about ahad al-mutawatir? Laysa min mabahith al-isnad. So the concept is that it's not about time. It's not about 8th century versus 3rd century, but it's about ideology. And there were some scholars who came later on, such as Ibn Rajab, or Ibn Abdul Hadi, and there were others who had the mentality of the earlier ulama of hadith. Certain things the earlier scholars and later scholars agreed upon unanimously. There is no mutaqaddimin, mutaakhirin in this masala. They all agreed on this. And there are other things in which the ulama of the early centuries themselves ikhtalafu fi. And there are other things in which they agreed upon and it was only mentioned and argued over in the mutaakhirin. Alright? So before we get into who should we follow, whose ruling of hadith is better and more authentic, we have to natasawwar al-mas'ala, haqqa tasawwur. We have to understand why is there even an issue. And what's meant by mutaqaddimin and mutaakhirin. And it's not just time, but it's ideology. Just like you have certain people who are young and they say, you're old school. You have an old soul and you're a young man. But the way you dress, the way you think, they say you're what? Old school. And then you may have people who are old who want to look young. They want to go to the gym, they want to wear tight clothes, they want to be hip. And he's 3 times older than you. So it's not just based off of age. The next very important point is saying to return back to the early scholars of hadith does not mean disrespecting the later scholars of hadith. It does not necessitate at-ta'an fihim, disrespecting Ibn Hajar and al-Iraqi and Dhahabi or the scholars of today. Ahmed Shakir, Sheikh al-Albani, doesn't mean disrespecting those scholars. And it doesn't mean that they didn't do anything for the deen and they didn't service the sunnah. La, abadan. We don't say that. If you differ with them, if you're qualified for that, that's one thing. But it doesn't mean that you disrespect them. And calling to go back to the earlier generations doesn't mean that the later generations have no contribution. No one will say that about a fool. What the ulama of Islam did in the 7th century. Nawawi, Iraqi, Ibn Hajar, al-Dhahabi. They served the deen. But it doesn't mean that every opinion, every view, every definition was pure and organic. That's very important to understand that point. So let's get to the actual answer to the question. What should the student of knowledge do? It depends on the student of knowledge. If you're a beginner, if you're a baby, then you take what's given to you. If you're advanced, you research and you look into it yourself. If you're in the middle, then you do a little bit of this, you mix and you match. This issue, I don't have the time to research. This issue is way above my head. But this issue, I can research. I can look into. Alright? So it depends on the talib al-ilm. It depends on the issue. The general rule is that we always advise the people to go back to the earlier scholars. And once more, for the record, that does not mean that we are calling to the disrespect of the later scholars. It does not mean that. Abadan. Rather, umirna an nunazil an-nasa manazilahum. As Aisha radiallahu anha has quoted have said, we were ordered to give the people their due rights. That's it. Doesn't mean that this one is bad because he's later and this one is good because he's earlier. You clear on this or not? So that's my advice with regards to the issue. Ilm al-Hadith, a part of it is theoretical, and a large part of it, the majority of it, is practical. So once you learn a few basic books and you have a good teacher, you need to start making takhrij. You need to start reading the shuruh yourself. You need to start looking into the kutub al-rijal and the ilm yourself. And practice makes perfect. No one is born an alim. The tallest tree was once a small thing being placed into the dirt. So that's my advice with regards to Ibn Hadith. Last but not least, the last thing I want to say is a fatwa that I read some years ago from Sheikh Muhammad Ibn Muneer. I'm sure many of the brothers have read this fatwa as well. The Sheikh was asked, can a student of knowledge make ijtihad? Or is ijtihad only for an alim? Sheikh Ibn Muneer, he clearly stated there is nothing wrong with the student of knowledge making ijtihad as long as he has the qualifications to do that. And as long as he has the tools to do that. It doesn't mean that he's mujtahid mutlaq. What alim today can say he's mujtahid mutlaq? He's an absolute independent jurist. Who can say that? Doesn't mean that. But a student of knowledge who has the ability to look and to investigate, Sheikh Ibn Muneer says he can. And the interesting part about this fatwa is Sheikh Ibn Muneer, he mentioned an example about wiping up the leather socks. Al-Mas'al al-Khufayn. He says that not only can a student of knowledge make ijtihad, but he may make ijtihad and he may do an excellent job. And he may have tahqiq of someone who didn't have it, who came before him, who was an actual alim. So that's the point of advice to the people who say, a student of knowledge can't say this. A student of knowledge can't talk about this. A student of knowledge can't make ijtihad on that. Who said that? And you're claiming to follow the ulama from them, Sheikh Ibn Muneer. Right? Did you read this fatwa? So the bottom line is knowledge. If you have the knowledge to do it, alim, talib, no difference. If you don't have the knowledge to do it, alim, talib also makes no what? No difference. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. Allah says, don't approach that which you have no knowledge of. And that verse is not just for what? طُلَّابِ الْعِلْمِ. That verse was given to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Don't go near that which you have no knowledge of. Meaning, if you do have knowledge of it, there's nothing wrong with you going near that thing. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl akhi. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Who was Imam al-Ghazali? And was he a Sufi and he deal about the
Right. As far as Imam al-Ghazali, he's one of the most famous and one of the most popular Islamic personalities. Someone that isn't just known by the Muslims, but he's known and respected by non-Muslims. Was he a Sufi? Can we take from him? So on and so forth. Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said, Aballahu an yatimma illa kitab. Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said that Allah refuses for any book to be absolutely perfect except his. Allah refuses, Aballah. Allah would not allow a book to be absolutely perfect from cover to cover except for his book. And included in that statement of Shafi'i is Sahih Bukhari, and Muwatta Malik, and Sahih Muslim, and Aqid al-Wasatiyya, and this book and that book and that book, because those are not the book of Allah. No matter how thorough a scholar is, there's going to be a mistake or slipping or an error. Obviously, people differ in their levels of understanding. The Prophet, he said this himself. فَرُبَّ مُبَلِّغٍ أَوْ عَلَهُ مِنْ سَامِعٍ أَوْ كَمَا قَالَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. He says, maybe the one who gets the news understands it better than the one who heard the news. There's nothing wrong with that. People differ in their level of intelligence. They're different in level of understanding. There's nothing wrong with that. Some scholars may make more mistakes than others. There's nothing wrong with that. No kidding. What? However, the concept is that everything that this scholar says and does is good, and everything this scholar says and does is bad. That's what we reject. And that's what we warn from. So Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah is no different than any other scholar of Islam. He said things that were good, and he said things that weren't so good. Were there a lot of mistakes that Ghazali made? Was the Aqidah messed up, so on and so forth? That's beyond the point. The point is, he made beneficial works. And there were also errors, mistakes, and flaws of his work. Just like any other alim. But they're different levels. What's important is, there's no need to read the book of Imam al-Ghazali. You don't need Ihya Ulumuddin if you're a beginning student of knowledge. If you have to ask that question, you don't need. There's so much beneficial information which is simple, which is clean, which is right to the point on purifying the soul and ilm al-suluk and the adab of the nafs. You don't need to. Talib al-ilm, different story. An expert, different story. An alim, different story. He can pick up Ihya Ulumuddin and take the many benefits in that book and leave off the things which are mistaken. It's just that what? That's simple. Okay? A baby. How does a baby eat? A baby eats baby food. A baby is spoon-fed. A young child, 2, 3, 4, what happened? People, they learn as they grow. You don't give a baby something that's too difficult. You give a baby something that's soft, sweet, and mushy. There's no bones, there's no skin, there's no nothing, just eat. And that is how you learn knowledge. The more you grow, the stronger you become, you have the ability to discern. And to pick up the book of Ghazali, take the khair and leave off the shar. And the same applies to Fadail al-A'mal. I said it then and I'll say it again. In any other what? Book. Besides the Quran. But if you have, why are you even asking about Fadail al-A'mal? What's the point of you asking about the book? Have you read Fadail al-A'mal? Why do you need it? Why do you need it? Why? What's the mushkilah that you have with that? You haven't read Sahih Bukhari once in your whole entire life. Let alone Sahih Muslim. Let alone Sunnah Nabi Dawud. How many hadiths have you memorized? There's no need for you to have a problem with Fadail al-A'mal. Because you're not even going to pick up the book. Are we understand this or not? I don't understand. Please make me understand. What's the problem? And the same applies for Al-Ghazali. If you have to ask about him, then there's no need for you to what? You don't have no place, no business in his what? In his books. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl ya akhi.
Sheikh, we spoke about memorizing the Quran and learning the Arabic language. So when we give this advice to ourselves and other brothers, specifically the youth, some may respond by saying, you said it's a condition to learn the Arabic language, one of the key deviants, or who they see as deviant. So what advice can you give to the youth?
Right. Who said that it's a condition to learn the Arabic language? Khairan, inshallah. I don't think that a self-respecting student of knowledge would make that statement. Rather, I don't think that a self-respecting layman would make that statement. I don't think no one in their right mind would say something like that. If someone says, I want to be a student of Catholicism, I want to be a student of Christianity, and I say, well, you don't have to learn Latin, you don't have to speak Latin, you don't have to know none Latin. Who said that you have to learn Latin? I don't think no one in the right mind would make any statement like that. I'm a scholar of Judaism. I want to be a scholar of the Torah, a scholar of the Talmud, and I know no Hebrew, no Yiddish, nothing whatsoever. Who would make a statement like that? You can't understand nothing about Jews and Judaism unless you learn it? No, different story. I agree. You are totally stupid and ignorant of Islam if you don't know Arabic? No. But for you to be a scholar of Islam and to know the deen and have a thorough understanding of it, who in their right mind would say that you don't have to learn the original language in which it was sent down? I don't think no one would say that. And I think that's someone who is lazy and lethargic and doesn't want to learn the Arabic language, and they're trying to find an excuse. Or maybe even someone who has hasad. And Allah knows best. If they're not lazy and lethargic, and they don't have hasad, then they're awfully mistaken. They're terribly mistaken. The Arabic language is of extreme importance to a Muslim, let alone a student of knowledge. How can you understand the words of your Lord in the Salah without the Arabic language? Alright? Let alone the fact that we talk about dawah, who to take from, who to study from. I don't want to listen to the speaker. He's a deviant. He's this. He's that. He's so on and so on. One of the reasons is that you're taking from a translator. And you're at the mercy of a translator. But if you learn Arabic yourself, I read what Sheikh Ibn Baz said about this issue. And it's far different than what you translated it as. Or these are the other 10 fatwas that you didn't translate. So people are victimized oftentimes because they don't know what? They don't know Arabic. And the same applies to those who attack Islam. Most people who attack Islam and talk about Islam, because there's a new breed of debaters nowadays. It's not like the past. No, there's a new trend of now they go on the offensive, as we saw today in Hyde Park and on YouTube. You ever notice that? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was a bit different. They would just make up lies about Islam. Ever understand this? Or they would just propagate their way, so on. But now, people are opening up Sahih Bukhari. They're opening up the Quran and they're saying, look what your prophet said. Sahih Bukhari, volume 2, hadith number such and such. Quran 12:11, 26:53. They're going on the offensive. 9 out of 10 people you find bringing these doubts about Islam with regards to black people, with regards to women, with regards to beating, whatever, terrorism, whatever the issue is that they're bringing up against Islam. The Prophet killed all of the Jews. He committed a Holocaust. He was a warmonger, so on and so forth. The Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that I saw in my dream there was a black woman leaving Medina. So that means the plague leaves Medina. So this is the Prophet's stance against black people. And the Prophet, and so on. That's what they say. You can find this plain view on YouTube. 9 out of 10 of them, if you sat down and asked them, how much Arabic do you know? Have you read this hadith in Arabic? Did you read this verse in Arabic? 9 out of 10 of them say what? No. How can you be an expert critique or criticizer of a religion and you don't even know the language in which the religion was sent down? I don't think that will be accepted in academia. I think they would laugh at me if I went to the Vatican having an argument with them and I spoke English. Everyone understand this? If I went to Palestine and had a debate with Zionist scholars and everything has to be in English, do you think they would give me any respect? So Arabic language is of crucial importance to ilm. Wallahu a'lam. Fadli akhi.
Would a person be sin if he would have to contribute to a mortgage as his father asked him to?
If your father asks you to contribute to the mortgage, and you believe that paying mortgage is haram, you're sinful. As long as you feel that it's impermissible to pay that mortgage, and you pay to it, that's a sin. And if your father asks you to contribute, then it's upon you to try your best to convince him, to explain to him, and to plead with him. And if he doesn't want to take reason, or he doesn't agree with you, don't contribute to it, even if he's angry with you. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl akhi.
two things, inshallah. One is who is the Mujaddid? Because I heard the Mujaddid is the one who revives the Khilafah, but then I also heard it's the one who like revives the Sunnah. And then the other thing is I heard a hadith was saying that every 100 years that the Khilafah will be re-established. Something along those lines.
Right. Who is the Mujaddid? I've heard that the Mujaddid is the one who revives the Khilafah. And I've heard another interpretation that the Mujaddid is the one who just revives the Sunnah. And I have also heard that the Khilafah will be re-established every 100 years in the Hadith. Is this true? So on and so forth. The word tajdeed has different meanings. It can be absolute tajdeed. It can be relative. It can be partial. A person may revive the study of Hadith. A person may awaken the Muslims from their slumber with regards to Islamic politics. The Khilafah or other than the Khilafah. The tajdeed can mean many things. And in that Hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْعَثُ لهذه الأمة على رأس كل 100 سنة من يجدد لها دينها أو كما قال أو كما جاء. The Hadith says that Allah will send someone every 100 years who revives this deen. The Prophet never specified Khilafah or Ilm al-Hadith. He said من يجدد لها دينها أو أمر دينها. That's what the Hadith says. He who revives the deen. Is Ilm al-Hadith from the deen? Of course. Is Khilafah from the deen? Of course. But it's not necessarily restricted to one thing without another. Clear on that? As far as the Khilafah being re-established every 100 years, then first and foremost, the ulama of Islam, they differ with regards to these types of hadiths. Every 100 years, what does that mean? That every 100 years there will be someone who's acknowledged by all to be the Mujaddid? Or that there will be people who will make tajdeed of the deen, whether they're acknowledged by all or unknown or whatever the case may be. Can there be more than one Mujaddid at one time? Why could that? So there are many different interpretations and understandings of that hadith. What's important is Ilm al-Hadith is from the religion. And many people, as Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab, he says, قَدْ طُوِيَ, he says what? قَدْ طُوِيَ بِسَاطُهُ مُنْذُ الْأَزْمَانِ أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Rahimahullah, Ibn Rajab, not the Prophet. He said that the science of hadith and its study has been abandoned a long time ago. And he died in the 8th century. What do you think about 2018? The 15th century. Alright? The concept of the Khilafah and Muslims having a Khalifa and the obligation of having that and establishing it and so on and so forth. We all know what's going on. We all see the Lord today. We all see what the non-Muslims say and what the munafiqun say. May Allah protect us from being munafiqun. And what weak-minded, ignorant, sinful Muslims say. And what happens to people who wish to keep Islam orthodox. This is what it states. This is the dalil. This is what we have to do. We all know what's happening in the world today. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Wallahu a'lam. Any other questions, brothers? If not, we will stop tonight. Jazakumullahu khairan. Allah surely knows best. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention, and for your respect. May Allah guide us to the straight path and keep us firm thereupon. My thanks to all of my brothers, those who hosted us, those who took us around, who drove us around, who fed us, who entertained us, who supported us in this second tour. Brother Nuruddin, may Allah bless you, give you the success with all good. Brother Abu Isa, Brother Muhammad, our whole entire entourage, Brother Abu Sa'id, Brother Al-Amin, all of the brothers and the sisters who helped us out, all of the imams in the masjids, the different sheikhs that we met, all of the tulab al-ilm, all of the people who came to us and supported it and showed love. We thank each and every one of you. And I'm not trying to be funny, but I also thank the people who were negative. The people who said bad things and negative things and warned from it and said don't say, we thank you. Wallahi. Because we are indebted to you as well. Whereas hatred and hasad and negativity, we feed off of those things. And that's a means of encouragement. So I say shukran. Thank you to each and every person who had anything to do with the trip. Jazakumullah khairan. I'm in your debt. I ask Allah to bless you, to reward you. And thank you very much for sacrificing the time with your family, your wife, your children, You worked everything else that you left off just to make sure that we were okay and to make sure that the program was a success. And it was my pleasure and it was my honor to come to the United Kingdom for a second time and to do what we do. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.